Good afternoon, colleagues. I am Mr. Motlodi, Subject Advisor for Geography, Monteo District. Colleagues, we are going to go through the revised curriculum and assessment plan due to the reasons that we already know, the COVID-19 that attacked us, the whole world, and then due to that, there was a lot of time of schooling that was lost. I'm talking about almost 9 weeks of teaching and learning that we lost. So we had, or we are forced as a province and the nation to revise the curriculum. But this time we're only going to focus on the grade 12 one. The grade 10 and 11 one will come on a later stage, colleagues. Now I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to go through, and then after that we'll go to the ATP of the grade 12s, and then we'll look at some of the things, because we did not create any major changes on the ATP of grade 12. We did not remove, we did not revise it, but it was actually, it was not streamlined, but we had to compress it somehow to cover all the content. So let us go straight to the PowerPoint presentation, which goes by, it is 2020 revised curriculum and assessment plan for grade 12, which should be implemented on the 1st of June 2020 when we reopen, or when the last arrive. Now, when we move to the second slide, we'll see that there is a PowerPoint presentation. The first one being the purpose of this, and then the second one being the amendment to the content overview for the phase. Third one being amendment to the annual teaching plan. And then number 4 being amendment to school-based assessment. This is a very important one. And then lastly, it will be conclusion. Now, if you go to the purpose of the whole presentation, it is to reorganize a 2020 annual teaching plan, including school-based assessment for geography grade 12 for implementation in June 2020. Now we're talking about the 1st of June when we reopen. And then to ensure that meaningful teaching and learning proceeds during the remaining teaching time, as per the revised school calendar. Remember, colleagues, we lost almost 9 weeks of teaching and learning. And then when this COVID thing started, when the president announced that we must go on a lockdown, from the 31st March, we did not actually attend any school, but that happened on the, it was on the 18th of March when schools were closed. And then when we move to another point, it will be to assist teachers with guided pacing and sequencing of curriculum content and assessment. Still continue with the purpose, colleagues, to enable teachers to cover the essential core content or skills in each grade within the available time. Remember, we're only focusing now on grade 12 for this time only, and then grade 11 will follow. And then another point is to assist with planning for the different forms of assessment to ensure learners are adequately prepared for the subsequent year in terms of the content, skills, knowledge, attitude, and values. That refers to the grade 10 and the grade 11s. And then when you look at the summary or amendment that was done on the content overview for the phase, remember we did not take out any content on the grade 12 syllabi or syllabus because the question paper is already there. Learners are still going to write the complete papers. That is why we did not make any amendments in the grade 12 syllabus. We only did alignments of the ATP. So there is no way in which we can actually remove any content on the syllabus, but we need to come up with the ways of covering the remaining content. Moving forward to another slide, it is the amendment to the annual teaching plan, ATP. And then this will be done both in English and Afrikaans, but I'm not going to present the Afrikaans one, but schools and teachers will be given that one of English ATP as well as Afrikaans ATP. But I'll only present that one of English ATP. And then amendments to the SBA or school-based assessment. We were compelled or forced to remove some of the formal activities in order to cover time that is remaining on our side. Now, let us go to the revised program of assessment in grade 12. remember in grade 12, term 1 learners or grade 12 learners are supposed to have written the data handling and test 1. That should be written. But then on term 2, learners are only going to write a practical task, which is very, very important. It will be an open book test. And then June examination is not going to be administered due to time constraints, but that time we are going to use it for teaching and learning. But here on term 3, what is very, very imperative that we still need to give our learners research task. As we speak now, learners are supposed to have the topic now. But then I just hope in the long run we'll still get the guidance if we are going to continue with the research or we are going to convert that into the assignment due to the conditions or the restrictions of the COVID-19. And then another task that is going to be written, it will be preparatory examination, which is a trial examination, September 1, which is already there. And then we'll just go through it or the structure of it when we continue with the presentation. And the last one, it will be an external examination. I just hope all the teachers and schools have got the timetable for that. Now, in other words, instead of giving learners the number of tasks that we're supposed to give them, we are only going to give them 5 tasks that will count for SBA in 2020. That is the data handling test, and then practical task, June examination being excluded, and then test 2 also is not going to be administered, but research is very, very imperative, colleagues. We are going to give it to our learners, and then preparatory examination, as well as the external examination. So only 5 tasks are going to be administered for SBA in 2020. Let us move forward. Revision final examination structure. There won't be any revision for the final examination structure. And then in conclusion, there is no content changes that were made in grade 12, only alignment of the ATP to suit available suit time that is available in the 3 remaining terms. Now let us go straight to the ATP, colleagues. Go into the ATP, there we go. This is the grade 12 National Revised ATP from term 1 until term 4. Remember, colleagues, the content or the syllabus for term 1 was covered, which is climate and weather, as well as the geomorphology. They were well covered, and then our learners were supposed to write the test on the 20th. It did not happen because lockdown was actually implemented on the 18th of March. So I'm sure that we are going to have a time to write that test, but then the content of term 1 was covered. Mid-Atlantic cyclone, the tropical cyclone, subtropical, anticyclones, valley and urban climates, drainage systems in South Africa, fluvial processes, catchment management were covered in term 1. And then moving to the remaining time, which is term 2. Term 2 was supposed to start on the 7th of July to the 18th of September, but then we are going to start on the 1st of June 2020. Now, this is where we'll have to cover, first week when we reopen, we have to cover or start with the topic of settlement. Settlement that is divided into rural and urban. So week 2, we need to teach our learners rural settlement, focusing on site and situation, as well as the pattern and functions, shapes of the settlement around the linear T-shape. And then we must also incorporate or include GIS, data manipulation, data integration, buffering, querying, and statistics. And then when we move to week 3, which will start on the 15th, and then it is 4 days We also need to continue with the rural settlement issues. This is where we're going to look at the rural-urban migration, causes and consequences, and then the depopulation, social justices, issues in rural areas such as access to resource and land reform. That is in week 3, that will start on the 15th, and then we're going to only have 4 days to cover that. And then moving to week 4, that will be from the 22nd to the 26th of June. We must move, or we should have completed the rural settlement, and then we must move forward to urban settlement and hierarchies. And that is where we are going to focus on the content like the origin and the development, urbanization, site and situation, trade and transport, break of bulk points, concepts of urban hierarchy, central place theory, threshold population, and then lower as well as higher order functions. Those we are expected to complete between the 22nd and the 26th of June, colleagues. And then we have 5 days to complete that. And then week 5, that will run from the 29th of June to the 3rd of July. We are continuing with the urban settlement, and then we are going to focus on the urban structure and pattern, whereby we are going to look at the land use zones, central business district, rural urban fringe, and then we will have to complete with the morphological structure of the city street patterns, shape of the township. That content is supposed to be completed on the 3rd of July. And that week 5 has got 5 days. And then we move forward to week 6, which will run from the 6th to the 10th of July 2020. And then it also got 5 days, colleagues. And then we still continue with urban settlement, incorporate that with the GIS issues. And we are going to look at the models of urban structures, such as a multiple nucleic model, the modern American Western city, the third world city, and the South African city, and the changing urban patterns and land use in South African cities. And then in GIS, we're going to talk about data sharing and data security analysis, application of GIS, and then developing paper GIS. Those are the aspects that we are supposed or expected to complete, colleagues. And then when we move to week 7, that will run from the 13th to the 17th of July, 5 days, colleagues. We are still continuing with urban settlement and also map work. So we are going to focus on recent urbanization patterns in South Africa, urban issues, lack of planning, housing shortage, overcrowding, traffic congestion, and service provision, informal settlement. You know about that one, colleagues. And then we are going to do the revision of map skills and GIS for grade 12. And then week 8, that will run from the 20th to the 24th of July. 5 days, colleagues. We are going to focus or continue with urban settlement issues. And then the content that we need to cover there, it is associated issues, case studies, world and South Africa case studies that show how selected urban areas in South Africa are managing urban challenges, handling environmental, economic and social justice concern. So that will be on week 8 from the 20th to the 24th of July 2020. And then when we move forward, colleagues, moving forward for term 3, remember we need to complete this. Term 3, that is when we have to complete Let me just check here. Colleagues, sorry about that for a while. I was looking at this. I've actually moved to another one. And then for research colleagues, we still need to train our learners on how to write a research. That is very, very important. And then we also need to complete the economic geography. I'm sure that when it will have enough time, as indicated in our revised ATP, before our learners can actually write, that's the correct one, colleagues. Term 3, we are going to focus on the structure of the economy and GIS. On the economic geography, colleagues, we are going to look on the South African economy, value and employment, and use of the statistical and graphical information, role of small and large-scale farmers, and export markets, favorable and unfavorable factors. And then also continue or incorporate with GIS, whereby we consolidate the GIS content and skills in grade 12. And then week 2, that will run from the 10th to the 14th of August. With 5 days, we are continuing with economic geography, and then we are going to focus on agriculture and mining, including GIS. So you see, colleagues, GIS is very, very important. And then we'll focus on the content like a contribution to the economy. We are talking about mining and agriculture this time. And then food security. And then factors significance for agriculture, mining, the development of South Africa, factors that favor us and hinder agriculture in South Africa, as mining and agriculture in South Africa. And then we'll have a case study, and then we'll also look at the food security and food insecurities. And then week 3, we are continuing again with the economic geography. That will run from the 17th to the 21st, 4 days. And then we'll focus on the secondary and tertiary sectors. And then we'll also incorporate that with map work. We are going to focus on the contribution to the South African economy, secondary and tertiary sectors, and then factors influencing industrial development in South Africa, tertiary, and then international trade and guidelines. And then after that, we still need to look at map skills. Should be incorporated with on the very same week. And then when we move to week 4, that will run from the 28th to the 24th to the 28th of August. That will be 5 days, colleagues. And then we are going to look at the South African industrial regions, manufacturing regions for that matter. And then we'll look at PWV, or Gauteng, Durban Pinetown, Southwestern Cape, and then Port Elizabeth 18H. And then we're going to look at the factors that influences the location, main industrial activities, industrial development, IDZ, Saldanha Bay, and then Platinum Richards Bay for SDIs, and then issues, and then centralization and decentralization. And then again, we're also going to teach our learners map skills, just to ensure that we keep them abreast with map work. And then week 5, which is the 31st of August, that is the time, colleagues, that we are expected to complete the syllabus. And then we are going to look at the informal sector, which is still the continuation of economic geography. And then we must look at the concepts and characteristics of the informal sector. And then reasons for high informal sectors in employment in South Africa, and then challenges facing South Africa informal sector. And then we're also going to look at the case studies. And then after that, we also need to give our learners map skills revision. And then after that, colleagues, we will have completed the syllabus. Although it appears to be compressed, I'm sure that colleagues are going to manage to complete in time. And then after that, we're going to move straight to trial examination, since test 2 is not going to be administered. Now, on the structure of the trial examination, We are going to have paper 1 in the morning at 9 o'clock, and then paper 2, which is out of 225 marks for 3 hours. And then we're also going to have paper 2, which will be written on the same day at 2 o'clock, which carries 75 marks. And then it will be written for 1.5 hours. And then when we look at paper 1, colleagues, it is divided into 2 sections, which is section A and section B. Section A being physical geography, and then section B being human geography. And then on question 1, that is where we're going to have short questions of 15 marks, covering both climatology and geomorphology. And then question 2, we are going to have 30 marks, for the next part, we're going to have 30 marks for climate and weather, and then 30 marks for geomorphology. In other words, question 1 is going to carry 75 marks. That will be divided in that fashion. And then when we move to question 2, we are still going to have short questions of 15 marks. And then that covers geomorphology and climatology again. And then 30 marks for climate and weather, and 30 marks for geomorphology. And that will carry 75 marks. And then question 3, that falls under section B, human geography. We are going to have short questions that carries 15 marks, settlement geography as well as economic geography. Settlement geography will carry 30 marks, and then economic geography will also carry 30 marks. And then that amount to 75 marks. And then question 4, short questions, 15 marks, both climatology, settlement geography and economic geography. And then 30 marks for settlement geography again, and then 30 marks for economic geography. And then all in all, the marks will be out of 225. Actually, learners need to only to answer 3 questions, because we've got 4 questions, and then it will be 3 hours, and that will carry 225 marks. And then we still need to train our learners on how to break time, colleagues, because we've got only 3 hours. We don't want our learners to complain about not finishing the paper because of time. And then in the afternoon or evening, we are going to write paper 2, map work. And then that will run for 1.5 hours. And then the learners must answer all questions, or 4 questions. Question 1, it will be multiple choice. That carries 15 marks. And then question 2, it will be map calculations and skills. And then question 3, it will be analysis and interpretation of the topographical map, and photographs, as well as the orthophoto maps. And that carries 25 marks. And then the last question will be question 4, GIS, 15 marks. Colleagues, that is the structure of the question. I'm sure we are familiar with it. Nothing has changed. It is as it was in the previous years. What is important is to remind our learners to answer only 3 questions, not 4, because they'll be wasting time. And then I think that covers the ATP. Going back to the presentation. In conclusion, colleagues, remember we said that there are no changes or content changes that were made in grade 12. We only aligned the ATP to suit the remaining time that we have in this term. And then I just hope we are going to use our time profitably, colleagues. And then lastly, I will say thank you so much. That brings to an end my presentation.